Hi, and welcome to Monsoon Talks and today's artist panel discussion, which is part of the 6th annual Monsoon Festival of Performing Arts. My name is Gulzar Nanda, and I'm the chair of the Punjabi Market Regeneration Collective.
And my name is Nagra, and I'm the creative director of the Punjabi Market Regeneration Collective. We're gathered here today at the Vancouver Art Gallery, which is located on the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
For the second straight year, the Monsoon Festival of Performing Arts is taking place virtually, but the South Asian Art Society is fully committed to supporting artists online and in person.
We're excited to be part of the festival this year as moderators of this conversation with some incredibly talented artists who painted murals in Punjabi Market for the first time in its 51-year history. Let's meet the artists.
Our guest curator for this year is Lally, who is the assistant at art rental and sales at the Vancouver Art Gallery, where she works with local BC-based artists. Her past positions include assistant curator at the Contemporary Art Gallery. Lally is currently serving as the president for the board of directors of the Contemporary Art Society of Vancouver, president and fundraising chair for the board of directors of the Richmond Art Gallery Association, and is on the artist residency committee for the Burrard Arts Foundation. She received a master's in history of art from the University of Birmingham, UK, in the curatorial program, where she was the team leader in organizing a graduate-led exhibition of drawings from the National Portrait Gallery, London.
Born and raised in Punjab, India, Guntaj Singh is a Vancouver-based, self-taught queer artist who nourishes his imagination through his passion for fusing art and poetry, using the pursuit of art as a means to capture the pursuit of life. In his eyes, the purest form of art emerges from the very essence of human existence, emotions, the proof that we are conscious and living, which constantly reflects in his artistic desires and expression. His visual art is consummated through creating a blend of fundamental drawing elements, pencil, charcoal, and oil paints, combined with digital tools such as Photoshop, Illustrator, and Leonardo.
Mustaali and Minahil Bukhari are a creative duo currently based out of Vancouver, Canada. Mustaali is an art director and designer working at intersections of concept development and visual communication. Minahil is an interdisciplinary artist interested in poetic gestures that enable a sense feeling that cannot be comprehended by language. She works with diverse media and application, including photography, digital art, and spatial installations. They come together to collaborate on projects bringing diverse perspectives from their respective fields.
Diamond Point is a contemporary Coast Salish artist and a member of the Musqueam Indian band. Point grew up on reserve and currently resides in Ladner with her daughter and husband. As an emerging artist, Point feels her artwork is current and belongs within the present, and she continues to develop and change her techniques and style throughout her experiences. In her work, Point respectfully incorporates traditional Coast Salish design elements to represent the beautiful teachings and history that her ancestors have passed down through generations since time immemorial.
And Sandeep Johal is a Canadian visual artist whose practice engages drawing, collage, textiles, and large-scale murals. Through her Indo-folk feminine aesthetic, she confronts themes of bleakness, despair, and ugliness with their dissonant opposites, brightness, hope, and beauty. Johal's work typically centers around the stories of women, and while she highlights female suffering in its many forms, these are ultimately stories of resistance and resilience.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations. We made it. Yay! Yeah. I'm so happy to be sitting with you all today. Let's just jump into it. This is the first year in Punjabi Market's 51-year history that we brought public murals to the market. And I just wanted to jump in and say, how does it feel to be sitting here on the other end of it now?
I think it's a very momentous occasion that we've made it this far, that it's happened, and visual language has been introduced to the market, and I think that's so important, especially now as the arts transform, and to say thank you to the Punjabi Market Regeneration Collective for gathering all of us together and allowing this project to come to fruition. So it's been amazing. I think we're all very excited.
Yeah, I mean, like through our work that we've been doing, we're realizing as we're doing it, like how forgotten Punjabi market has become. It used to be such a huge hub. It used to be the place where you would come to get your gold jewelry, to get your wedding outfits, right? And
Your
I feel
food,
like your food, yeah, spices.
Yeah.
So I feel like, for us, this was a way for us to introduce people back to the market. A lot of people that I meet, if they came directly from India to Surrey, they don't even know Punjabi market in Vancouver existed. They don't know, like, why would anyone go there? That's the kind of questions we get. So, it's our way of bringing people back in to the market.
But it's also interesting if you look at the other way as well, where we're reintroducing community to the shop owners and the people who have lived in the area for so long as well, and making new connections. I think that's also an important aspect too that's happened naturally, really, through this whole process.
Yeah, and I think with each of you, like meeting the landlords that you had the experiences with throughout your painting, like that's a new connection now that you've made that you might not have had before, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I think that was one of the best parts of the entire process, having the interaction with Mr. Toor, who is the owner of Punjab Food Centre, and him sharing his experiences of what it's been like for him to have the shop in the market for so many years. It was amazing. And then, I think nothing compares to a connection like that, where people share their life experiences, and it's divine. Yeah.
I think you did a photo shoot with him in Punjab Food Centre on your own, and was that planned, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so do you remember the walking tour, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you pretty much curated the walking tour, and then Gurpreet did the audio for it as well.
Yeah.
And you know what? One of these days, I was like, I don't have anything better to do. I was just sitting by myself, and I was like, you know what? I should go to the Punjabi market today. And I just did a walking tour by myself. And I met Mr. Toor, and we took some pictures. He was a little bit shy, but I asked him if I could take pictures of him. And he allowed, and we talked a little bit then also, which was prior to the process of the mural. And I think I'll just keep revisiting him again and again so that, that connection stays alive. Yeah, and then also Manny, with him also, there was a very playful connection. Yeah, so it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and Manny, for those that don't know, is he works at Himalaya restaurant. One of the sons of the original owner, and
sons,
they're very involved in the community and in Punjabi market. So Sandeep, you did there well.
My main man, Manny. Yeah, Manny is really interesting because he actually has a vision, and so he was really wanting to be involved in the mural process, which I didn't expect. And so it was fun getting to know him, and I feel like we really got to know each other by the end of the project, and just kind of working together to manage expectations, but also I'm taking this vision that's really important to him, coming from this tradition of sweet making and turning that vision into my aesthetic and giving it a contemporary twist. It was really an interesting project to be working like side by side with him.
And I think he was a perfect example of, showing the impact that murals are having on, like, someone who's had their business in the market for, 40 years or something? Over 40 years?
40, 50 years now.
Yeah, so, right? Like, you can feel his excitement, like, the change is coming to the market. So,
And he just kind of like fussed about, and then he changed the lights to make sure that there was a nice glow at night, and he was getting like really excited about it. And then after I came back to pick up my paints, my name was signed. He's like, Sandeep, so are you done? I was like, Manny, I've signed my name. It's done.
Yeah, so Sandeep, when Jazz reached out to you with the opportunity to do the mural, like in the Punjabi market, first time we're bringing murals to the market, how did you feel about that?
I was pumped. It was such a full circle moment because I spent so much time in the Punjabi market growing up. And my parents would drive 8 hours from Kelowna to come to the Punjabi market specifically. And so, yeah, it just felt like this really nostalgic full circle moment.
And I think it was important also for Sandeep to be part of this process as a South Asian woman who has broken the barriers in the visual arts as well by doing murals and getting your artwork out there and being a role model to other South Asian artists. And so I think, wanting to give back to the community, but to show the community that you can be a visual artist and can be successful at it. So I think that was one of the reasons why I had to ask Sandeep to be part of the project as well. And your work is amazing, obviously.
Oh, thanks. But coming back to what you're saying about how you can make a living through the arts, one thing I thought was really interesting was when I was painting, a lot of the uncles would come by and be like, "You're doing this for free?" And I was like, "Do you think I'd be standing in a heat wave for 8 hours a day doing this for free?" And so it just brought me back to that idea that art is still not valued in that way. And you wouldn't go up to construction worker and be like, "Hey, are you doing this for free?" Because they're getting paid. But there's this assumption that if you're outside doing some sort of public work or you're creating art, that you must be volunteering because surely you can't make a living from it. And so, there were some interesting conversations around that as well, and talking about the value of art and the importance of art, especially public art, because it's accessible to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually find that very interesting is because, from the South Asian perspective, our culture, you got to be a doctor, you got to be somebody like that, a professional. But Mustaali, yourself, you were an engineer before, right? And you made that shift over into art. So why don't you tell a little bit of people about that shift over and, how you actually came to that conclusion that you wanted to practice, in the visual medium?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure like a lot of us, I grew up drawing, coloring, and I actually wanted to be an animator. As a kid. I loved animated movies. And it's weird because I come from a family of doctors, engineers, but it was even the community I was in. I grew up in Calgary, so it's very kind of you either go energy sector or medicine. And in high school, I remember my art instructor being like, "Oh, you should go to design school." And I remember myself thinking in my own head, I'm like, art school? Who goes to art school, right? And so I did engineering, and I was like, easy 4 years, get a degree, get money, it'll be quick, right? It was one of the hardest things I've done. And as I was doing engineering, I realized this is not what I wanted to do, but I didn't have the support structure or the confidence at the time to make the switch. So I always did stuff on the side, but by the time I finished my degree, I was like, no, this is it. I need to move out, I need to start fresh. I ended up working in the oil sector for a few years, and that's when I moved to Vancouver in 2011. Went back to school, started as an art director / designer, and through the process, my parents were, they're obviously on board now, and it was a process, but there's still people in the community there that think I'm, out here painting. Actually, I guess I am out here painting. But yeah, it's much more than that, right? It's but like you said, their perception of a creative or an artist is just hey, you're painting these little paintings you're gonna put up in your wall, and it's usually done as a gift for free.
I actually got posed that question multiple times throughout the process as well. And I actually also relate to your journey so much because I have an engineering degree, but it's just a piece of paper. And so I also kind of wasted 4 years of my life, but I guess it wasn't a waste now that I look back at it because it was a lot of thinking and reflecting on what I really want to do and making that jump when I moved to Vancouver.
Yeah, similarly, reflecting back, for the longest time I regretted, I wasted 4 or 5 years. Yeah. But now I'm seeing the value of the other things I learned through that process and the people I met. And the clients I've gotten to work with now because of my background. And also my approach to design is, I guess you can say, a bit more systematic, systems-based, yeah.
Is there anyone here who grew up knowing they wanted to be an artist?
I always, my mom was a creative, but she didn't have the support structure from her parents. So when my parents saw that I had a little bit of that instinct towards like a creative life generally as a kid, they encouraged it, and then I was always like really into getting into art school, and they supported that decision. At one point when we moved to Canada and my university credits did not transfer fully to the university here, there was a moment when my dad was like, "Are you sure you don't want to switch to accounting?" Yeah. But once he realized that no, I'm ready to pull through this, they were pretty supportive, and they still are, and they helped paint this mural as well, which was really cute. Yeah.
How about you, Diamond?
I've never really thought of myself as like a career artist. Like, I don't know. I think art is so embedded within, like, as a Coast Salish person, as a Musqueam person, like, art is just really embedded in our culture, right? And our teachings and our stories and our history. And so I look at it more in that sense. And it's a way of how I connect to my culture, in a way of how I connect to my community, in a way how I connect to even relatives and ancestors. And so that's kind of, I don't know, that's always just how I've felt connected. And even when I was younger, I actually thought I wanted to go into like museum curating. I wanted to be a curator, and now I'm a teacher. So I've done a lot of shifts, but yeah.
Well, I mean, that's something that really resonates with me, Diamond, is that idea of being connected to your roots. How do you achieve that, right? And I felt that being able to do this project really allowed us to do that. And I guess this is a good time to shift over to ask Jazz sort of a little bit about your theme for this year, the curation. So how about you share, what your theme was and how everything came together for you?
Started with a story, like all great projects do. When Jag and Gulu, you invited me for a coffee day on top of the mountain at the Sunset Community Center. And we'd worked independently together already, so we kind of knew these guys. But that was really, I think, one of the capping moments of how this project started. Getting to know that I really wanted to do this and wanted to be part of the community as well. And for both of you trusting me with what your vision already was about bringing back people to the community, right? And sharing the community to other people in Vancouver who haven't been there. So it kind of took this idea and also reflected upon my experience of growing up in Punjabi market as well, right? So community was the broader kind of theme that I was thinking along, but what makes the community, right? What brought people to Main and 49th back in the 70s or wanted to be shop owners in this area, and the diaspora developed there, and they were coming to meet and greet each other and learn and meet other immigrants. And so I was like, well, they're coming here for food and for clothing, right? So that was kind of where I stemmed from. These themes started coming out of relating to food as exemplified in Sandeep's mural, right? Design and architecture in Mustaali and Minahil's work. And then what Punjab looked like back in the day, that nostalgic feeling of what people remembered about India or where they come from, and talking about it within the community. That's shown in Guntaj's work. And then the land itself, right? How the land has changed. And I think Diamond took that up so easily in representing the three nations that Punjabi market sits on and is on, right? So I think that was kind of where I started. And I was like, well, if these kind of ideas of community, land, food, clothing, and vibrancy and color created this community at Main 49th, how about that be what also brings people back, but in a visual language that we've already spoken about has kind of been pushed to the side as artists or creative people, right? I mean, Punjabi people and folk are so creative in design and clothing, for example, and making food, but yet the visual arts kind of get neglected. And so I thought that this would be that moment, right? Where visual art, color, everything would come together, and the community would rile with everyone as well. And clearly that's happened as to the stories that we've shared with their relationship with the shopkeepers and folks coming from all parts of Vancouver and the Lower Mainland returning to the market. So I see it's happening already. So that was it. And most importantly, it was a feeling, capturing that feeling that I had growing up and trying to share that with everybody else as well. So
It's
I
actually
think
very interesting what you just said about how people came. Like a lot of our friends had never been to that part of the city. And through this whole process, they've come there, spent like a lot of nights with us. They've met people. They were actually telling other people about the market at one point who were visiting the murals. So yeah, that engagement has really already started.
And now we have the power of social media, right? Back then it was like word of mouth kind of, right? And now it's social media and everything that we're doing here in your own networks as well that's helping to bring back that foot traffic that's so needed in Punjabi market and all the other communities as well. So I'm happy that that's working.
So I guess when we learn about the sort of the theme, how I will start with Mustaali and Minahil here. What's the name of your piece, and how do you feel that you're able to convey the theme through the mural?
I'll go first. I guess you can add to the thing. So our piece is called Shahi Tukra, which is also a dessert, but it literally means like a royal piece. So the building owner, she has a jewelry shop, Darshana Auntie, and she talked about how she wants something that embodies the royalty and the palaces of India, or just the culture generally of that era. So that's where we came about the name and the concept. We wanted to draw some inspiration from actually our trip that we took in 2018, and took a lot of photos and visits, and brought a piece of that with us and in our memories and physically in our photos as well. So yeah, we went back to the drawing board and drove a lot of inspiration from that, and I'll let you talk a little bit more about how we actually designed the thing.
Yeah, and we took an architectural approach to it. We're talking about community, we're talking about spaces. You can, I mean, it is a public space, but how do we take this 2D surface and almost create this illusion of a 3D space within it, right? And a lot of the motifs were inspired by shapes you can find in jewelry, again, to tie back to the stores that are in that space. And just bringing this color palette that felt like an Indian summer, but also keeping it very contemporary with the bold vibrancy of the palette.
I think, I'm sorry, I'm just going to add on to that color thing. I think we were very mindful of the color choices because there's a little bit of stereotype that happens when you think of India, that everything is just so bold and bright and just the typical colors. But there's also there are nuances in all these bright colors that are being explored for centuries now, and like they're present in the old frescoes and murals and things like that that we don't necessarily talk about. We're just talking about like perhaps shocking pink and shocking green and things like that. It's a lot more than that. There's combinations that are so sophisticated and they all exist. So we were very conscious of like bringing that side of the colorful heritage of India as well. Yeah.
And then as an sort of added layer conceptually, all the lines converge into this door, archway, symbolizing how Punjabi market was, the place these immigrants came to and established the South Asian community. So in a way we're celebrating, the South Asian diaspora.
The entryway.
The entryway.
Yeah. I think that's what gravitated me most towards your collaboration was Minahil's background in jewelry design, and Mustaali, your graphic intentions as well. And I was actually quite excited. I'm like, how is this going to work? How are they going to bring it together? But you did it so well. And I think getting to know the shop owner, Darshana Auntie, as well. And maybe with all the building owners at first, there was a bit of hesitation. This is the first time it's happening. And the mentality that everyone goes through is like, what is everyone going to think of everything? But that's why it's important. And really, I wanted both of your works to be shown at the market. And because it's so collaborative and so different, and it's a different aspect that needs to be highlighted of South Asian culture as well.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
It turned out
we were honored
beautifully together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we felt really honored when you thought of us, and it was a great process.
And it was fun to see how, people, just like you said, random people just walking by, you just hear them whispering like, oh, that looks cool, or that looks sick and stuff, right? And I'm like, okay, good. It's not just like people coming up and trying to be nice.
It was actually rewarding because a lot of people had been coming for multiple days, and then once it was finished, they were like, oh, I see it now. And it's all so, and then at one point we were painting at night with the spotlight, and then the owner of the Darshana Auntie's son, I think he came over, And he was like, yeah, maybe we should put up some night lights here, like, light up the mural.
Exactly, so people could see it in the
Yeah.
nighttime, right? Yeah, that was one of my favorite things, just coming to see you guys in the nighttime, bringing some cha, watching
Bringing
you.
us the light.
Yeah, bringing you the light and, just experiencing it and just sharing those moments together.
Yeah.
And, I think I did that with everybody, right, a little bit. And we started off with Sandeep, right? You were the first one to get started, right? And with you, what's the name of your piece? Let's hear about that. And how do you think that it really conveys that sense of community and belonging that we were trying to achieve?
Yeah, mine's called The Love Letter to Mithai, so Indian sweets. And so when I spoke with Jazz about sort of Manny's vision, it was really sweet-centric. And I wanted to make sure that I honored that. And I tried to do like the rows of sweets, but it wasn't really working. So I thought, well, why don't I put them in these sort of ornate dishes? Because when you go to Indian people's homes and have mithai and ja, they're always in these really beautiful dishes. And then brought in like the archway and the dome. And then, Manny was like, oh, I want it to be more symmetrical. So maybe we could have 2 domes. And so I'm like, okay. So then I changed the design and then we put another dome in. And it actually ended up looking quite nice. And then I wanted to add the Amriti. So Manny's sweet specialty. And so I turned those into flowers. So it's not obvious to someone when they're looking at the mural what they are, but to us, and especially to Manny, he knows what those are, and those represent his expertise in sweet making.
We actually saw him, he let us come into the back of the kitchen and see him make those.
Yeah.
Amazing, especially when they're fresh.
And in the restaurant, they have a huge, long table, like running in the middle of all the sweets and everything. And I think that it used to be outside, like where your mural is. Is that where they used to have the table?
Yeah, it was on the inside along,
on the inside, okay.
along the windows, and that's how it was traditionally. Like
Yeah.
going there, that's what I remember seeing because everybody wanted sweets, and that's where the idea of the sweets came from. Was in the earlier conversations with Manny, he's like, people used to come to the restaurant and they knew what they wanted, and it was the sweets, and they would come at any occasion, every occasion, they would be there for the sweets, right? So I think the sweets also came as an idea of bringing back that nostalgic feeling as well, and all the memories of celebration and togetherness.
And I wanted to do it in a really like fresh way. And so, it's not, when you look at the round mithai, it could be gulab jamun, it could be laddu, it could be any of those sweets. But, I wanted to bring my own aesthetic into it. And Minahil, when you're talking about like the bright, bold colors, I grew up with those with my mom's Indian clothing. And so that for me was really nostalgic. And I brought in those colors, based on what I was surrounded with as a child. And so, yeah, it was very punchy and like a real pop of color, because the previous wall, like the empty wall that I painted on, it was just this like really ugly brown drab color that you would never notice. But now that the mural's on there, it's just like, whoa, you see it right away and it draws your attention, and then it brings you over to kind of investigate and be like, well, what is this all about?
And the way you I was just saying, the way you complement the bright colors with your black and whites and things like that, I think that makes it so beautiful. And that's exactly what we were talking about as well. Like, it's the balance of those nuances that need to happen, and you do it so well.
Thank you. And that was one of the things where, talking with Manny, he's like, oh, can you just do the peacock, like in color? I said, Manny, no, I have to do it in black and white because that's my sort of signature thing. It's color, and then it's juxtaposed with the black and white imagery. And that's kind of what my murals are known for. So I'm like, I have to do it in my aesthetic. And so, we did have a lot of conversations where, we're like, no, yes. But in the end, he was really happy with the peacock and the shape. And I think he understood the black and white, portion of it and why it was necessary for me to put in it. Because as soon as I put the black and white in, it just made everything else pop. And so, his wife was like, oh, now I understand this.
But I think that's what was, one of the important things about the whole process, right? Introducing art to the building owners and to the little area of Main and 49th is the aspect of educating, right? What it's all about. And obviously everyone had their trepidations at first, but having such brilliant artists come and speak to the building owners and get to know them and work with them collaboratively and help them better understand where you're coming from, because each of you have such a different and unique artistic approach. And I think that they see it overall in the market as well, right? From more traditional to contemporary too more design heavy. So I think that was an important part of this process as well, and what the building owners are taking away from it, and also most importantly, what the other building owners now also who want murals on their wall hopefully are eager for next year for more murals to go up.
And actually, what you're saying, like Sandeep earlier, you said people were asking if you're doing it for free. I think now people having seen the whole process, how long it took, what the whole, from sketch to actually putting it up. I think that helps teach people the value of art, rather than if I walk down Mount Pleasant or somewhere where the murals have already been up, I'm just seeing the end result. I'm not seeing how much time went into it. So.
Exactly, and the conversations that happened in the background, the multiple discussions, the multiple sketches at one point as well, right? And also letting the shop owners just trust you that it will come to an end and it will be beautiful and exactly what they wanted. And I think that's happened.
Yeah, just for them to see your actual physical hands in the work. Like you were saying, when people see murals, they see them complete, but to see like the sweat equity that goes into making that. And even, I have my mock-up taped to the wall and people are like, oh, so you drew that beforehand, and just trying to understand the process. And so I would talk about, I make it on Procreate, photocopy it, and then I use that as my aid. And fortunately for me, the wall was already gridded because of the tile work. So it was like a built-in grid, so it was super simple to just put the imagery up, because I could just count all the squares. But I think it's important for people to see the actual working process of it, to see the physical human doing that work, because it is labor. It's very laborious, especially during a heat wave. Yeah.
Yeah, at one point I thought I got heat stroke. Yeah. On one day I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it was hard to stay cool, I can imagine, right? Like, especially with the pavement being super hot, and I don't know.
It was one of the biggest challenges for sure.
Yeah.
We kept cool with all the mango lassis.
Yes, I drank 2 mango lassis a day.
Honestly, there was folks in the community that were worried. They were calling me, asking to make sure that everybody had water, that, they had ways to cool down. And there were a few days where we tried to bring by umbrellas and stuff like that. So that was something I was really, proud of too, where the community, they brought you in, right? They're like, these folks are with us, right? And how do we take care of them? And I think somebody who really taught me about that was Mr. Tour, with Guntaj painting your mural on Mr. Tour's wall. Why don't you tell people about what your mural's name is and sort of how it ties into everything?
Yes. So the mural is called The Golden Land, and it screams Punjabism in its visual language, I guess. But I also want it to be at the same time relatable for everybody, not through exactly the descriptive image itself, but what they feel when they look at it. So I remember our conversation with Mr. Toor when we first were sort of coming up with the draft and design. And he wanted something very quintessentially Punjabi and traditionally Punjabi. And he also wanted it to be nostalgic, because I could tell that he wants to go down the memory lane with it. So I knew right away what I wanted to make. I wanted to be very classically Punjabi again. It was right up my alley in the sense that it had to be nostalgic. There had to be some romance in it. There had to be some poetry in it, and I wanted to create that. But at the same time, I wanted anybody who looked at it to get a sense of what it's like to really revel in the beauty of life. So I think universally it is relatable in that sense. So as you can tell in the mural, it's very descriptive, it's very figurative. And there's a woman, she's churning milk to make lassi. And then there's a guy who's performing Bhangra, which is the traditional folk dance in Punjab. And there's 2 children just playing hopscotch in the corner. There's fields in the background. It's all very golden because it's also that time of the year when the crops are ripe. So there's a factor of joy in it as well, because that's when we celebrate Vaisakhi in Punjab. It's literally a recreation of this moment that I kind of created in my mind through my own memories and experiences as a child when I would visit rural Punjab, where my parents came from. And that's what I wanted to bring to life. And I just wanted to make sure that it had the element of romance in it. So for me, that was the most important thing. And Mr. Toor is pretty happy with it. He's told me he's pretty happy with it. And also, during the entire process as well, when someone would walk by, and also towards the completion of the mural almost, people would walk by and they weren't necessarily, coming from a Punjabi background, but they would still have questions in terms of like, what's going on here? And I would ask them, what do you first see? Tell me, and the answers were always like, I see warmth, I see joy, and words like that would come up, and I was like, okay, I guess I've achieved my goal here, because that's what I wanted to evoke. It was very sentimental, and I wanted it to be sentimental for people who also weren't necessarily from Punjab. So yeah,
I can picture my parents bringing, like when we bring my kids there to come see the mural, like I can picture them explaining, what the woman's doing, and I'm already imagining the sense of pride they're gonna have, sharing their stories about life in Punjab.
That was what Mr. Toor, Uncle Toor really wanted, was to show where Punjab was, and show the younger generation like how the harvest was done, because now we don't know how corn is made or brought to us, right? So really demonstrating that historical but also nostalgic moment that happens every year for us. So I think Guntaj has done a great job in highlighting that, especially with your very beautiful sunsetty sky as well.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with sunsets, and I always make sure that that's an element in anything that I do, even if it's not obvious. I always use tones that are, inspired by that. So I also wanted to make sure that there's a balance between, as you said as well, because I didn't want it to be too earthy either. So it had to be earthy but bright in some parts of the mural, and I wanted to achieve that as well. Yeah. But yeah, it was amazing working on it. It was pretty surreal, actually, to be honest with you. Those 10 days were very dreamy, and so many memories and so many beautiful moments. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for trying to bring that sense of Vaisakhi back to the market, because it's been 2 years now, and we haven't celebrated Vaisakhi together, and that's after 40 years of nonstop celebration, in a way, I guess, with your mural, we have celebrated Vaisakhi, so thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you. That feels
So,
good.
Diamond, what is the name of your piece, and what are you trying to convey?
Yeah, so I called my piece Interconnected. I just thought that what the piece visually says is very much interconnectedness. And so when I had my initial conversations with Jackson in China from Or Development, they really wanted that emphasis of like interconnectedness, diversity, like coming together, family. So it was like right up my alley. And so I think also I was really nervous as being the only Coast Salish Indigenous artist. And so that was kind of nerve-wracking. Is this gonna be like received well? But I think what I just really wanted to bring forward was, again, like just this visual reminder that, yeah, this territory is Coast Salish territory, right? And I think where a lot of my passions come from as an artist is I think growing up, the older you get, you start to learn more about the erasure and the displacement and the erasure, especially the erasure of these histories and connections to place and space. Even within my own family, we were situated in kind of the Steveston, Gary Point area, and then even learning my own family's history of like my great-grandfather actually being like removed and threatened to lose his status if he didn't leave and go on reserve. And so I think it's really, again, these histories are very much erased from kind of the knowledge of the city and Vancouver, and so that's always where my passion comes from, and kind of, again, giving that visual reminder. And so that's why I like to make my work really bold. It catches your eye, catches your attention, and it makes you stop and ask questions or want to know more or learn more. And so the piece is actually a 3-strand braid coming together and being woven together. And not only is it representing the nations, right, Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh, as us as relatives and as the host nations, but also that actual weaving and braiding, also myself as an Indigenous artist coming into the Punjabi market and having this kind of cross-cultural connection and kind of being woven together. So that was where.
And it was also beautiful to hear Jackson and China talk about the streams.
Yeah, the streams, yeah.
Were once in the area, in the Punjabi market, and one stream still exists underneath the building. So I think you're really able to capture that flow as well that happened and is happening now through like cultural experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when they were like, yeah, we'd really like a lot of blues, I was like, I got you. I got you.
Well, you know, Jag was telling us that Mr. Tour actually came and he asked about your art and what its significance is. And, you know, Jag, you know, tried sort of sharing it. And he actually came to me and told me that there is a stream, I'm not sure if this is true, that runs from Stanley Park, a creek that's still underneath the grounds, under the lands here, that runs from Stanley Park to Knight Street Bridge. So I thought that was like, your piece really brought the sort of, the geography into it, right? So which I thought was very pretty. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting on another level too. Like, you know, it's almost like these rivers flowing together and combining, and you know, going back to Punjab, right? The 5 rivers. So there's all these parallels and connections, which is really beautiful.
And for us, it's like so important to have the Indigenous representation in the market because like our parents' generation, they don't know a lot about what happened here, right? Like my mom learned from like Anne of Green Gables, the TV show, like, oh, did you know what they did to Indigenous people in Canada here? And I was like, yeah, like that, you know, these are the conversations. So having Tour Uncle asking me about your art, what it represents, and now him having that conversation with Gulu, who knows how many of his family members he talked to about it. You know, this is how we educate people through art. It's not just a pretty picture, right? There's so much more layer and depth behind it. And that's what we're trying to achieve. Like even with the banners that have gone in the market with the collaboration with Deborah Sparrow, the Musqueam banners that are on the ends of the market, like that's so that when people are walking through, they're reminded that there's so much more history beyond the 51 years that Punjabi market has been here. So that's really important to us to showcase that and yeah, have people carry on these stories and have better understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, also just to add to, like, I think what was really important for me also is, I think, again, educating and because I think there's also this, and again, it's kind of that pan-Indigenous approach that gets applied like so many times. And so a lot of people's perceptions of like Northwest Coast art is very much of that like Northern formline style. And so again, like Coast Salish art is so different. It's so distinct. It's so unique to Coast Salish people. And so there's a lot of non-Indigenous Canadians who really, when they think of like the Northwest Coast or BC, it's like Haida art, Northern art, and it's like, no, like Coast Salish art is a very distinct, unique art form. And so that's really important to me also too, is to kind of like dismantle that pan-Indigenous approach that always gets kind of applied kind of all over all realms.
I sort of have a follow-up question. Like when the elders in the market, like South Asian ones, I feel like they don't always understand art. They don't always see it even when it's there. Like Gulzar with jewelry making, that's an art form. If you asked them, they would be like, that's not art, that's jewelry.
That's a commodity.
Right?
Yeah, that's the approach that they take.
Yeah, pattern making and that sort of thing. But like growing up, for you, was it different? Like, is art more part of people's lives? More so than, like for us, it's like we're teaching elders how to look at art, you know, how to interpret it. Did you find, do you have that kind of experience or?
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, just like, we have these different forms of art, but we like, you don't even necessarily, like, it's just part of like community, and it's just part of like, it is art, but it's more like how we like conducted our, like either our ceremonies or our governance structures. Like it's all in, like, again, it's all interconnected and embedded within one another. So it's like, it's just, you don't even like necessarily like consider it like this is specifically just art, because art was used in a way that was so kind of like across the board. Like it wasn't specifically like you're an artist and that's art. Like all of the different like, you know, you think of like art carvers, right? Or jewelry, things like that. Like it was just part of like keeping our community to kind of continue to pass on to future generations. So.
Like a way of living.
Yeah, it's just a way of living. Yeah. Like again, it's like kind of a hard question to answer too in that sense.
Yeah, you just embody it. It's not separate from who you are. It's just a complete part of who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that translates really well into like South Asian culture too, where my family, we've been in the jewelry, I guess you could call it an industry, but we've been doing jewelry for a long time. And it's always been part of ceremony, you know, whether it's when you have your first child to celebrate that, or when someone's getting married. So I think that it resonates that it's tied into your life essentially, art is, right? So.
And like diamonds, you make a good point. It's like every day, right? Everything is an art form in itself, and it's enjoyed and appreciated. I think, and that's where our little shift needs to happen. Hopefully, it's already happening in our generation. But with some of the elders, I know it's more difficult. That like, yes, jewelry design, cloth making, performing, and poetic poems. Written language is also an art form, right? So we need to embrace it all and not be like, you have to be a doctor or a lawyer, right? Yeah. So I think that's also important to demonstrate to our community and the artists that were part of that process as well, that this is art and it is important to have art in our life and appreciate it as something everyday life, but also as something that's important as well.
We come from such a rich craft-based culture that I think people don't realize they're making art. And then, you know, we as the younger generation, we're elevating that art in our own aesthetics.
But it's almost ironic, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that we come from that culture, and then there's this undervalued perception of it in the bigger picture, I guess. Yeah. Which is what we're working towards eventually.
Yeah. It's almost just we're just not rediscovering, but just reconnecting with that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the rich tradition goes back centuries. Right?
Totally, and like we're
And it was
reinterpreting
valued.
it as well.
Yeah. And it's not just recreating those moments from the past. But it's like, how do we push this into the future now? So yeah, it's super exciting, and like kudos to you guys for like connecting, the murals with the other stuff you're doing in the Punjabi market. So it's all becoming like a much bigger picture movement.
Yeah, I think like for me, I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like art, I find that to be sometimes the easiest way to educate people, the easiest way to get conversations going, and rather than having like a very academic approach, I kind of like you use the visuals to show somebody, get them talking. So I think that's how I sort of look at all the work we're doing in Punjabi market. How do we cross that divide between our generation and our elders who sometimes there's a disconnect there.
The academic sense is something that I think that is more new. It's like almost like you're scared to talk about art because over here, you immigrated here, your family immigrated here, and it became devalued over time. So, you can go earn money or whatever like that, right? But I don't think that's always been the case in South Asian culture where art is devalued. I think there was a time in our histories where it was extremely valued, right? And I'm so happy that we're able to sort of revisit that now in the Punjabi market. And my hope is that we come to a point where people just start, going back to the old way of thinking, like how our ancestors did about these type of things, right? And it's like a journey to bring everything together. And I hope it happens in the Punjabi market, but if it doesn't happen here, maybe it sparks it, right?
For sure. And murals are about access, right? When you have public work, it's about access because, a lot of people are not comfortable walking into a white cube space. It's very intimidating. But when you're bringing that art out of that space into the public realm, it's so much easier for people to engage with it in a way that's more authentic, and you're also you're transforming the space, you're bringing in this sense of pride and joy and identity, and that's just going to fuel more interest in amplifying that. Yeah. And
I think it's also a great opportunity for artists to look at things from a different perspective, because as a fine artist, I've done a lot of work for the White Cube, and come from that sort of an academic critical thinking background. And for me, it was a great challenge to bring something to the public and make it accessible and like think of things in a slightly different way. And like we talk about all these ideas and issues that are so relevant, and we need a bigger community to actually respond to those things. And public art is such a great opportunity. So I think it has to go both ways. Like artists also have to be a little bit more flexible into bringing their practices to a larger audience, and sometimes, and it doesn't always have to be, but sometimes I think there's value there to bring it to a larger audience.
And I think that helps people interact with the art differently, you know, like being in a gallery, there's going to be a security guard kind of hovering around. Like you have to be kind of, you know, we brought our 3-year-old a couple months back, and like trying not to get her to run around into this very expensive art was a challenge. But going to a mural where you can take selfies, you can, you know,
You can touch it.
Yeah, you can interact
you can
with
touch
it.
it. Yeah, like that. It sort of brings it to a different, level to it.
And
different
comfort zone
experience.
and understanding.
Yeah.
I also think the murals, and like you've all referenced, like bringing it outside of the gallery space is also a great way to include artists who maybe haven't had experience with art, or this like they're merging. And I know that was one of, you know, the basis that we start supporting our local artists as well, but also to introduce a diverse range of artists from different backgrounds, and not only in style as well. And so I think murals in that sense are a great way to introduce other people, not only to community, but introduce other styles as well. And I hope that the Punjabi market, we can continue to do that as well by introducing more murals and a wider scope of artists and styles and backgrounds as well, to bridge that community even stronger than it's already happening.
Yeah, actually, when we started, we were thinking like we want to have a like diverse mix of artists and stuff. But talking to the landlords, we realized that most of them are South Asian. They're very proud of their roots, right? Like they want to showcase that. Like with the sweets, like Manny's family has so much history. It makes sense they wanted to show sweets, right? With Darshana Auntie, like as a jeweler, she had certain ideas in her mind, wanting to express that. So that's something we learned too, right? Like landlords, we can't just go in and say, this is the artist you're getting, this is the art you're getting. I think all of you had conversations with the landlords to get an understanding of what was important to them, what they wanted to see. Because without the walls, without them agreeing, we could have all the artists lined up, but we wouldn't be able to put any art anywhere. So.
But it's also a happy moment as well that all the murals, from even like the South Asian artists, but they're all diverse, and they all have different representations of moments of South Asian history and identity as well, right? And how they connect back to culture and identity, which has been really interesting to see throughout the process. So, yeah.
And it is a lot about building trust, you know, and building relationships. And then when you foster those relationships, other things come from it.
I find both of your sort of story very fascinating. And sorry, I'm not trying to say that I see my parents in you, but in a certain sense, I do, because they've worked together they worked together for like 30 plus years in the Punjabi market, you know. As I was a kid, I was growing up, I watched them work together, and it's like some of the best memories I have is seeing them and then our interactions together. So I just wanted to know like more about you two working together and what that process is like and what kind of feelings they evoke for you.
Yeah, we're lucky enough that our professions kind of overlap sometimes, and we still have our individual practices as well as artists. I come more from a fine art background. I did my master's in that, and I have a studio practice separate, which is quite foreign to him, and his graphic design world is a little bit foreign to me. But then we both come together and learn from each other, and then collaborate on projects, and then things like the mural happens, the line of control project we did, the Tota project we did, and the Jolly project that was part of the Indian Summer Festival last year was also like a collaboration that we never thought of, and it just works. And like any other partners, I guess, we have our clashes too, and moments where we're like, no, I know this better.
She's like, don't use red.
But we've kind of understood like whose specialties lie, and then we kind of give each other that space and then work with that.
Do you seek out those collaborations, or have they sort of happened?
Sometimes, because like in our free time, we just kind of do things together, like random things. And then if we feel like, okay, there's something more to something, then we would seek out. Like when we were traveling to India and Pakistan, like we were just taking photos for ourselves and doing like things personally for our own, for the heck of it, for ourselves. But then we realized that we actually have like substantial material that could turn into something, and then we did an exhibition. And it worked out. So sometimes it's more organic and sometimes it's more planned.
And you're still married after all that and after doing a mural together?
So far, so good.
far.
Yeah, it's been six years, yeah. We've done a couple of indoor murals.
First on this scale.
First on this scale and this kind of commitment, so yeah.
Because of her background in fine arts, you did your undergrad in painting.
Installation art
Installation
and
art,
painting,
yeah. So I was like, okay, we'll do this mural. I've got Minahil. I haven't done this, but we're good to go. And then she's like, okay, bye, I'm going to Toronto.
That was before the mural, though.
Yeah, before the mural. So yeah, I started it off, but then she came to save the day.
Can I ask how you created the mock-up for the mural, how that process came about?
Yeah.
I think we had two ideas that we were really into, like.
Well, we
first-
started with a bunch of just like sketches
Yeah.
and like ideas of like, hey, we'll do architecture, we'll do this, like really quick thumbnails.
I
So
think
are both of you sketching, or is
he
like-
sketches more.
okay?
Yeah.
I am more of like just thinking in my head type of a person. Yeah, he has to get it out on the paper. Like he gives me sketchbooks and he's like, okay, use the sketchbook, draw. And I'm like, no, I just need to like either write or just think about it for a while.
That's how I am. I just think about it. I need to think about
Yeah,
it.
like I've had a sketchbook for my undergrad, the whole sketchbook that I used for 4 years. Because I'm just like a thinker and reader and like I just write papers and
Yeah, and I have to like get it out of my system. And like even if it's like a bad idea, I need to get it out and then it's done and then I can move
yeah,
on.
he runs out of sketchbooks like every 2 weeks. And
And then how did you bring your two styles together for the mural in that process of sketching?
I think given the nature of public art, like we knew we wanted something graphic, so I let him take the lead on like coming up with the graphic side of things, and then I helped with the shapes, the
color
finalization, the color palette, and like how much perspective you wanted in there. And
Yeah, so it's a bit of back and forth. Usually like, one of us will take a lead on like, okay, let's start with this. So in this example, I was like, okay, graphic wall, perspective, shapes. And they'll be like, oh, what do you think? Like, oh, this shape's not working. Let's change this. Oh, here's some inspiration. Here's the color palette. And then we'll kind of digitally mock it up, see what's working, what's not working.
yeah, even the black and white zigzags that we had at the bottom, like we were thinking like maybe you could do a checkered or stripes or things like that. But then there was a photo from a palace in Udaipur that actually has something very similar in there. And we just wanted to bring that in. Like it was such a cool graphic element. So modern at the same time, even though it's like so old. Like,
I think that's my favorite part of your whole mural is the floor. Yeah.
And that was all manually done.
Yeah.
In terms of the perspective.
Yeah. How did that go?
It was a challenge.
Challenging. Especially because it wasn't a flat wall, right? There was like the meters and the
There was a lot of pipes that we had to
window and
just
the pipes.
eyeball in there, and because perspective, you have to like measure it to the dot, because like everything looks wonky until it all comes together. So like yeah, that the little things in there were a challenge for sure.
I saw the picture of your progress shot. They had taped off the lines, and then you had like tape in between those lines, I guess for what not to paint or something. And I was like, I'm so dizzy looking at this. Like I would just start, I don't know how I would even start that process or.
Yeah, because there was a moment, Gulzar, you were there helping us with the chalk lines. So we had like these nice chalk lines laid out, and we're like, I don't know, someone suggested to it would be really easy to just paint in stripes, because it's all set up right now. And there was like a moment of contemplation. I was like, oh, it's not a bad idea. And I was like, that was one of those moments, right? Like, no, we're doing zigzags, which I'm glad we did, because it turned out nice. But yeah, it's a lot of like, even going beyond, it started with just like getting her opinion on stuff I was working on, and the same thing with her. But then, that's evolved now where, either naturally we come up with projects or we seek out projects to do together. And some of the bigger ones usually have revolved around our identity as, South Asian creatives.
And I think it helps that we don't always work together.
Yeah.
You have your separate art
Exactly,
practice, right?
Yeah. and separate desks.
For how many, like whose first mural was this year? You did all 5 or all 4?
This year, first outdoor mural.
First outdoor mural? Yeah. Sandeep, you've done, how many are you on? Like 20?
26 maybe,
Wow.
27. Yeah.
And so how has your like process changed? Because I can imagine, like, you know, I imagine all of you had lots of nerves going into this year. Do you still get those nerves, or are you just like
I
you're in the zone?
do, because every wall is different, every wall texture is different, every location is different, and then every client is different. So there's always like a little bit of nerves at the beginning until I get to the wall. I have my paints, and then I'm ready to go, and I'm fine. But I think that's what I enjoy about murals, is that it's really challenging, because every wall poses a different challenge, and so I'm constantly mentally figuring things out. And it's also that mental perseverance, because often it's on a timeline. And especially this summer's been really challenging with the heat wave. So I've painted 3 murals during the heat wave, like separate heat waves. And yeah, so it's, yeah, I love the challenge of it physically as well, because it's a very physically laborious process. I love the mental challenges of it, because you're always having to come up with some sort of solution to something, because there's always something that goes awry, and you have to be really quick on your feet to figure it out. Yeah, so I love transforming public walls. It's really one of my favorite things to do.
So a little bit about the process. Like when you talk to the landlords, did you, like I know you were saying you like to sketch things, but did any of you like know after you talked to them, this is what I'm gonna make, and you like saw it in your mind? Diamond, I know earlier you were saying like
even in the Zoom meeting I had with the owners, like as they were telling me, like everything, like
you already pictured it.
It was like visually was coming to me, and I like instantly was like, yep. And then I remember when I was kind of like trying to explain what I was thinking, they kind of were like, they couldn't see it, but I could see it, and I was like, no, trust me, it's gonna be good. And then then I got on Procreate like right away, and then I sent it to you right away. Yeah.
And they were like, yes.
That's
This is it.
yeah.
But I remember I was verbalizing what I was thinking, and they were kind of like, they couldn't see it yet. So, but I like, it was clear in my head what I wanted to do.
And I think same for Guntaj and Uncle George.
Pretty much, yeah.
You guys had a really great relationship. And
I remember my first conversation with him, and I kind of started visualizing while he was explaining what he wanted on the walls. So it was pretty similar, but there were a few changes that I made between that conversation and the conversation that happened next. I think Mr. Toor wanted something extremely more detailed than it already is. So I had to kind of, cut down on a few things and make sure that it's also realistically possible for me to achieve that within the time frame that I have. But having said that, I also wanted to make sure that it does bring in what he wants, which was, again, some very traditional Punjabi elements, yeah.
Yeah, I have to say the time frame blew me away. Like you all spent about a week, give or take, doing these huge murals, which like I thought this was a 2 or 3 week process, but Diamond, you took a week, I think, exactly a week.
My dad took a week off work to help me. So he took the whole week off work, yeah. My dad gets, anytime I have like an art thing, he gets really invested in it. So you
could feel his like pride, and he like owned it. You know what I mean? Like he was like there.
When I do cedar work, he'll go and get me the cedar. He'll like I do a lot of like Coast Salish paddle designs, like carving designs, and so he'll cut me the paddles, and like he gets really into it.
That's so sweet. Cute. That's amazing. Yeah. Does anyone else's like family members have?
Yeah, her family
my
really
parents
helped out.
came 2-3 nights and they helped.
It's fun because her dad doesn't really do like art, creative stuff on the side, but I was still like watching him paint. He looked like a pro. But then also I was talking to him. He's like, I'm really enjoying this, and it was nice to see that it was a nice creative outlet for him as well.
It's very meditative.
Yeah.
I also had friends, like my friends who were coming and helping, and so like they would take pictures. And I like invited friends, but I was like, no pressure, like you don't have to come. But like I had the same friends showing up, And then they were like telling me that they'd like go home and look at the pictures they were taking and then like look at areas that they were doing and then be like, oh, I don't like that line. Like, I'm gonna go there tomorrow and fix that. Or like, I don't like how I did this. And they got really like invested in it too.
Our friends did too. And like, I have a little bit of a height phobia, so they actually helped like do the very top part of that.
Yeah, we have some funny videos of us trying to figure out the lift initially.
Yeah,
I was like sitting down and going up.
Yeah, it's pretty sketch. I had Jazz help me, which was amazing. I'm very particular about who helps me on my murals, so I have to have a high level of trust. So yeah.
For trusting me.
You're welcome. You did a great job blocking in color.
Yeah, thanks for the brushes too.
Oh yeah,
I'll have to
yeah,
give those back to you.
You're welcome.
That saved my evening.
So would everyone do another mural again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Sandeep, you're going to retire after this, I take it?
I'm starting a new one tomorrow.
Oh, are you? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Amazing. Yeah, I think this has been really cool to like introduce, you know, like for those of you who it's your first or second mural, like introducing you maybe to a new career path or, yeah, hopefully there's more murals in your lives coming up.
Yeah. I think what was like a great takeaway for me especially was like a lot of the firsts that I got to do in the process, like first mural, like at that scale. A lot of the other like larger scale things I've done, there's always been like a team that goes and then kind of like you present the image or the file or what, and then they'll go and like blow it up. Or I've only ever worked with like adhesive vinyl. But what I liked was like all the firsts, and then like we didn't do the projection, we did a doodle grid, and I was really scared about that. And then like essentially like freehanding on a wall, and you were like, what? Like my drawing took me hours to do. Like but yeah, so it was like all those firsts that were really cool to do. Like first time using a lift, and then you like throughout the week just kind of become a pro at it. So yeah.
A lot of people just wanted to try out the lift.
Yeah, we just wanted to go up and down.
Yeah, that is fun.
Yeah, it's fun when you're at a height and it's wobbly.
Especially when you have two people up there.
Yeah.
The ground where my mural is, it's like uneven, so I had to like with the planks.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Tell me about
And
it.
then there was one day where I was doing it by myself, so I'd have to go like planks, go back up on the lift, go up. Oh nope, doesn't work. Go back down, and then like, oh my gosh,
Oh, wow.
that was pretty scary. And I was by myself, and I'm like, oh, if I tip over, like no one's gonna.
I'd probably hear you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Part of the process, right?
Yeah. Part of the process.
And especially where you were painting, it was just busy all the time. Cars coming in and out, in and out.
That was a bump in alleyway.
Yeah, it was very bumpy.
Everybody was there.
Yeah, there's a Tim Hortons around the corner,
Yeah.
right? Am I allowed to say Tim Hortons? I don't know, but they're right around the corner, so it was super busy. In one way, it was nice. They came out, gave us drinks and stuff like that, and they were very involved, Harj and Ajit Dandy, in the whole process. But then it was dangerous. Who would ever think that painting murals would be so dangerous? Right?
But it is. Yeah.
Or there was one day, like again, because everybody wants to go to the Tim Hortons, so they just park wherever. And so there was one day I came to my mural, and there was like a big white van parked literally up against the wall. So I had to like sit there and wait for the driver to come back. Yeah. So that was fun.
We once had a truck pass through and then knocked over some power lines.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. When I was there, we were just like, what is happening, right? Yeah.
Then we had to wait for BC Hydro and then resume.
Had a really chill wall, so.
Yeah, yeah, this is murals in the market.
Nothing
confession.
death-defying on your end.
Not this time.
The first day was really funny for me. All the bad things happened in a row before I even actually started doing the work. I spilled a paint can. I hit the car with the lift, and then I hit my head on the lift. So these three things happened in a row. Yeah. And then I went to Sandeep and I was like, Sandeep, can I just talk to you? Will you listen to me? And then Sandeep gave me the encouragement that I needed to get started on the first day. Yeah.
Wait, that all happened on your first day?
It all happened on my first day. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot.
Oh, my cheeks are hurting.
But it sort of sets you up, right? Like everything that can go wrong happens in one day, and then everything else after that feels like a breeze, and it's happiness and good vibes. You need that contrast sometimes, to appreciate the good.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, nazar lag gayi thi.
Nazar lag gayi thi. Yeah.
I guess, yeah. Anyway, it was fun.
So I actually want to talk a little bit about like what's happening in the world, right? I mean, we're coming out of a pandemic. It's not fully over, right? We have all experienced COVID now, right? And not only has it had an effect on the arts, but it also had a huge negative impact on the beneficiaries of this project, which is the community members, right? The business owners, the people that live in the neighborhood and stuff like that. So coming out of COVID, like what is your hope for how sort of art evolves in Vancouver and how it's going to sort of galvanize folks?
When COVID first started, Van Mural Fest had that initiative, Make Art While Apart. So there were 4 different neighborhoods, I believe, and over 40 artists. And we all painted the different hoarding on all of the buildings. I was downtown. And so, when I walked into like that space on Robson Street with all these boarded up shops, it was really depressing. And it was like this apocalyptic doom space. Like it was very, very depressing and very real. And then, you see all of these artists just painting the hoarding and writing these really positive messages and this really positive imagery. And it just completely transformed that space into this open air gallery. And there were tons of people just, walking up and down Robson because they had nothing else to do and just looking at the work and looking at the art. And it provided that bit of respite in that time when everyone was so stressed out and there was so much anxiety and uncertainty. And, just to be a part of that initially when that happened felt really incredible. And, even just bringing in the Punjabi market murals, Punjabi market has suffered. I've been shopping there for the last couple of months at different textile shops. And one of the uncles, I was like, how was your business during COVID? Like, have you guys been okay? And he's like, no, we've been really impacted. He goes, even you coming here and buying this, he's like, that helps me so much. And it's only like $100 or $200 each trip I made, but just that small amount was really helping him, and so you're seeing that devastation from COVID. And then hopefully these murals will bring people into the Punjabi market and, they'll start shopping and spend their dollars there and kind of reinvigorate that space.
Did Mustaali and Minahil, during that period, I mean, everybody's been sitting at home now. Was there a shift maybe in your approach to work? Did you get time to just think about like, hey, this is sort of my place and in my practice? And was there an evolution that you feel might have happened?
I mean, even before the pandemic, I was still working as a freelancer. I was working remotely. I mean, I would still go work from clients' offices or go to the agency, but I had my setup, right? So from a workflow point of view, it was a bit easier for me to adapt. But when the pandemic initially started, like everyone was freaking out, right? So projects were getting canceled, delayed. So there was a big chunk of time where we did get to sort of self-reflect, or at least I did, and started exploring, some more personal projects, looking at not just my professional work in like design and advertising, but also my own arts practice, right? Like, what is it that I want to try to achieve in my own personal practice, mostly in the form of digital art.
I think those sort of moments are very, very crucial as an artist because you're always on the go. And then that forced break kind of makes you reflect, and then you kind of do projects that are so valuable to your own personal growth. We use that time to actually reflect and do some personal things, and like even little things like getting your website done, like thinking about like putting your portfolio in order, and like little things like that take up so much time. I think we kind of did that in that time.
Yeah, and even exploring new
ideas,
platforms. Like for example, I started learning 3D, and now that's something I want to get more into.
Just like practicing our crafts as well, like you do. I was doing a lot more photography on my own and like experimenting a lot with that because now I had the time. But then we were lucky enough that after a few months, then projects started to come back because like people needed like a lot of things that were like even COVID relevant. So actually you realize that art and artists are so important because even with the pandemic, there was a lot that needed to be done and that had to be said and that required creatives. that was a good learning for us during that time.
And it's so important too, like in the market, to have these moments or pockets of like you come across a mural and whoever's walking and then like they take a moment to enjoy it and they have like a moment of happiness just looking at it and exploring as well. And I think for the community, that's probably going to help bring out the neighborhood a little bit more. Or like, you know, uncles or aunties coming up for their evening walk, they're going to maybe take a different route because they've heard that there's like these vibrant murals, right, at Main and 49th. So hopefully that's a positive effect on the community via the murals and the energy that's been brought back.
Yeah, we had someone biking and they ended up in our alley by accident because he took a wrong turn. And, you know, we started a conversation. He's like, oh, if I hadn't taken that turn, I wouldn't have seen this mural. And then he was like, oh, there's murals happening. And then he biked around and went to each of your murals. And he's like, I want to book my friends. And yeah, no, it was nice to see those little moments of, like you said, those little moments of smile or happiness.
A lot of people were thanking us that thank you for making our neighborhood beautiful. I was like, thank you for having us.
Yeah, those are really sweet moments.
Yeah. I noticed people would be driving by and then you see their car slowing down and then the window rolling down, right? I think when I was at each of your murals that happened.
My grandma did that.
Oh, really? Oh, cute.
She was going around because she doesn't have very good mobility. But each of my, like I have 4 aunties, and so each of my aunties each day were bringing her, and then they were driving her around because they'd come to mine, and then I'd tell them where everybody else's were, and they would go drive, and because my grandma, especially during the pandemic, was like very alone, and then again we were all staying away from her because she's the eldest in our family, and we didn't want to, you know, jeopardize her at all. And so she's been really like, I just need to get out and see things. And so, yeah, she was coming almost every day in the car to go drive around.
You know, my arts professor at Langara, he tried drilling this into us. Art is a product of its time and place, right? And I think that the time that we're living in and the time that, you know, we've sort of came together to do these murals in the market is hopeful. I feel like there's a sense of hope, right? So, Diamond, are you hopeful for your art practice coming out of this pandemic, out of COVID, and where you're going next?
Yeah, I am hopeful. I think as each kind of new art opportunity kind of comes my way, and the more I just continue to like learn, and that's what I love. I guess like also the teacher in me. I just love like new learning opportunities and anytime I can learn something new. And I feel like I've been really blessed and honored in each kind of new art opportunity I'm doing. It's always new to me. And it's something that I haven't done before. So I'm really hopeful that I'll continue to have those opportunities and just continue to learn and do new things. Yeah.
Guntaj, I have a question for you. Yes. You're a queer Punjabi artist. Do you ever reflect on that and like what that means for the queer South Asian community? I know like when I led that queer walking tour a couple weeks ago, everyone was so excited to come to your wall and you know, we had a little fangirl moment. Well, he was up on the lift, like 1.5 stories up, and we just came up to him and started clapping.
Yeah, it was so sweet. Yeah, it definitely made me feel special.
Yeah. Like, do you ever think about that? Like, growing up, for me, I didn't know any other queer South Asians, and to have someone doing something in the public realm is really amazing.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't necessarily like think of myself like that, but I do know that whenever I put myself out there, whether it be through public art or you know any form of expression, I do know it leaves an impact, and I think that realization itself sort of motivates me because there's so many other queer South Asians that I know I've had that experience myself, who are still either stuck in homophobic environments or they just feel a little bit alienated in their own families even, or in their own country, you know. And having come from that environment, I know what it feels like, but my only approach towards art in general is to not necessarily target that, but to just let go of my own inhibitions and keep doing what I love doing, because I think that's the biggest message for anybody out there. And yeah, that's when I reflect on it, that's what I end up, telling myself, that you just have to keep doing what you love doing, and that in itself is a message, because I embrace my sexuality and I embrace everything that comes with it, and any opportunity that I get, I just make the most of it, and I believe that in itself should be an inspiration in a certain way, in terms of like coming out of your shell. Yeah.
I think for so many of us, like coming out, period, is a huge deal. Not everyone can do it. So just seeing you existing and thriving is, I think, a huge inspiration to people. Even if you're not making queer-centric art, you're not painting rainbows, but I think it touches a lot of people to see.
I mean, growing up, I looked around, and there were artists around me, queer artists. And when I first moved here, I guess I looked up to you, and I still do, So I mean, so I guess when you look at others doing something, there's definitely a glimmer of hope or some sort of inspiration or even a silver lining sometimes, just hidden there, and you just have to identify it and recognize it, and then just start doing things,
Yeah. It helps people find a connection, Like I met you not that long ago in real life, but we've been Instagram friends for a while now. So when I saw you at that picnic that we went to, like, oh my God, I ran over to you, and seeing you in real life, and it was a really cool moment to. I often think, like, me growing up, like, this is the kind of person I wish I had, to look up to. And nobody talked to us about being queer or what that means or that's allowed. Like, it was never part of our conversations. So, like, for my kids, I have 2 kids, them knowing another queer artist, I think, is going to be really cool. And
I definitely had to, like, learn a lot through my own, like, experiences after I moved to Vancouver. And I just feel really blessed that I ran into people who were just, willing to listen or even have a conversation, And this is how I ended up here with everybody in this room. So yeah, I feel really blessed. Yeah.
We feel blessed too.
Yeah.
To have all of you. Yeah,
everyone's stories, right? Like
everyone's stories
everyone's
is great,
backgrounds.
yeah.
I think all 6 of you come with so much history and a lifetime of experience that you brought into this project, which is really amazing.
So I know that we're sort of the moderators, and I don't want to flip the script, but I will a little bit. Do you have any questions for us? Is there something that maybe you haven't had an opportunity to explore?
Sure. Did you know what you were getting yourselves into when you started the Punjabi Market Regeneration Collective?
No, I don't think so.
Yes, a little bit. Okay, why don't you take it?
No, you go first.
I knew what I was sort of getting into. I wasn't sure if it was going to happen, but you have to be hopeful, right? I was really relying on, like, sort of my experience in the Punjabi market, that sense of community, love for people, happiness together. I felt that, okay, if we can sort of start discussing how are we going to bring the Punjabi market back, that necessarily would come back too. Maybe you're asking from a different perspective about if it was difficult.
Just more, did you envision, I know, Gulu, you had this vision or this idea, but when you both got further into it, did you know where it was going to end up? Like, did you, because you put in so much work, like so much of your own time, which is so admirable to reinvigorate the Punjabi market. But I guess it's just like, did you know kind of where you wanted to land with it?
I don't think I still know. I don't know where we're going. I don't know, like, I feel like the last 2 years that we've been working, like, so many opportunities have opened up. Like last year we were planning to do 1 mural, and now we, worked with the Vancouver Mural Festival to bring 4 murals. to me, I feel like that we're still at like the very beginning of what the market can be, and I think there's going to be opportunities that come to us that we haven't even dreamt of yet, right? And that's the cool thing about working with folks like you. Like maybe Guntaj is going to have an idea and come to us. Maybe Diamond's going to be like, hey, let's do this, right? In the future, I think it's been exciting. It's been a lot of work, but it's exciting to see when you can take a step back, now that the murals are done. Like, we've been working with Vancouver Mural Fest since January. Gulu and I have been meeting every Saturday morning at 11 to 12, aside from all the other work, right? Like sponsorship meetings, wall permissions, curator meetings, landlord meetings, like all the behind the scenes stuff. And now, I don't know if I've still yet taken a step back to be like, whoa, look what is here.
Last week, I sort of messaged Jag and I said, hey, is it okay if I delete this 11 a.m. meeting now, right? Because we're sort of getting to the end now, right? But I think that meeting is going to start, we'll start having that meeting again pretty soon, right?
Couple weeks, we'll add it back to our calendar.
We'll add it back to our calendar. And Jag was touching on the fact that, hey, like working with you all has been an inspiration, and we're not sure ready like where we're going, but I know that my mind's been sort of racing with ideas about how everybody can be involved in the future of the Punjabi market, right? So just to give you an idea of like where I'm at is that everybody has sort of inspired me, So it's been a blast, right? And I'm really happy with how everything turned out. It turned out great, like very
Thank
good.
you for all your support as well, and like you bringing us chai every night.
Yeah, every time Gulzar would drive by.
Thank you for Slurpees.
You could sense some relief.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for always just being there, through the entire process. Yeah.
And staying positive.
Yeah.
That was, I think, the greatest thing. Even with those background freakouts we're having, you're like, no, we got this. We're going to get there. That was great. You're an inspiration to us.
And I think that sense of community and hospitality really came out, especially when we were working there. People, just our mural in the building, people that were in the building, living there, going in and out, they would stop, chat with us. They'd be like, oh, can we get you something to drink? Can we get you food? Like they were cooking there. And even like, the volunteers from BMF who are from outside the community were like, oh, I'm not used to this hospitality, right? And that's what the market's about.
It is 100% about that. That's definitely the sense that I had when I was growing up. And it's really nice to see that it's coming back. For a while, it wasn't, right? It wasn't there. And you're sort of the folks that brought it back, I think.
I think this has given people hope, like there's been so much talk over the years, false promises, I guess you could
False
say.
promises, yeah.
And people have sort of become jaded. They don't believe that stuff's gonna actually happen. People are not gonna invest in it, is what they've been thinking. So I think them having something physical to look at, I think that's gonna give them a lot of hope. And yeah, I think these kind of conversations you're saying, it gets people out. It gets people, like you're saying your grandma came out, like that's so cool.
And other members of my community, like other members from the reserve were coming out. So
amazing.
That was cool.
That's really cool. Yeah. I think like we all of the artists, I think you all have like these family and friends who are proud of you, and you're introducing them to the market, right? And they're gonna go back and tell someone else. So this is how it kind of snowballs.
Actually, it was really cool too. Because I just finished my program, my B.Ed at UBC, and so I made a really good group of friends from like my social studies cohort. And so one of my friends, like she grew up in the Punjabi market, and so she was coming and helping painting, and she's like, "This is so cool," because like we only met through this program, and then I was like, "I'm doing this mural, like I need if anyone wants to come help paint." And she's like, "I grew up here," like so she even felt that like coming back and connection and stuff.
Yeah, and just people feeling like their neighborhood has been valued because they've gotten these 4 murals. And I know when I painted my mural at Ross Park, it was that same thing in the South Asian community where a lot of people are like, I grew up here, I want to come see the mural, and like, we never had any of this growing up. And so there's that palpable excitement of like, we're getting this really cool thing in our neighborhood and we deserve it. Like it's being recognized.
Yeah, and it's it's crazy to see people come from all over the Lower Mainland. It's not just people that are just living in Vancouver. You know, I was standing behind your mural just a few days ago, and somebody had pulled up, you know, I'm here from Surrey. I'm here to specifically look at these murals, right? And I thought, I was like, yes, like people are coming out here. And, you know, you were touching on earlier, Sandeep, the fact that, you know, during COVID, VMF, they did all these murals on Robson, and it really brought people out, right? And it brought people together. And I feel like if there's one thing for the arts that we can see, VMF did a fantastic job for the arts in this city. Where they used to be Mount Pleasant centric, now, you know, there's murals going up all over the city. And I think, you know, because of the sort of response that they saw of just this hope, you know, from those projects that were done on Robson, they realized like this has to be everywhere, right? And thankfully it's in the Punjabi market and it looks amazing, but it's all over the city now. If you know, folks are looking for an opportunity to go check out more art. I know that you're doing another mural with the Vancouver Mural Festival. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that one is through Low Tide Properties. So they've selected a handful of artists to paint on their buildings, and I'll be doing, for the first time, I'll be painting one of my goddesses, which I've never done before as a mural. So I'm really excited about that. And then it's going to be augmented reality, which I've never done before. So it's exciting to think about it in this 3D way and like what are going to be the elements that are popping off the wall. But you know, Vancouver Mural Fest really gave me my start back in 2017. And I don't think I'd be painting murals if I hadn't gotten that first wall. So I have a lot of love for VMF.
It's been so much fun to make these memories and to have new friends as well, and to be part of the community, and also to get to know the building owners a little bit more. And I think that's what really connected this project. It's not even a project anymore now, right? It's something that happened in our lives. It's going to be ingrained as a great memory, and also interesting enough for the building owners too, right? A great moment in the history of their business and their aspect of life as well, that this happened or finally happened, and they can take away that positive feeling and that expression. And I think that's what it really comes down to as well, right?
And I have Manny's phone number now. Yeah. Told me to let him know if I ever need any help with anything. So I might hire him for my next mural.
And we also discovered one of the best chicken pakoras in the city.
Which I ordered after I ate yours. Yeah. I ordered some.
From where?
Tandoori oven.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it was one of those things I didn't know it existed until I was working there and we were exploring. We're like, oh. You know, and I got to know the owner there too.
Anjum.
Anjum, yeah.
Amazing person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very community oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really good chicken pakora.
And what you just said, Jazz, like this is why I got involved in the Punjabi market work, because of the community, right? It wasn't like you were asking, did we know what we were getting into? Like I had no idea other than the memories I had of community here. And like I'm a very like sentimental person, so like this, even just this panel we're doing is going to stay with me for a long time. And you know, these bonds and getting to know each other is I don't know, I don't even have words for it. Like, it's really cool that we were able to do this together, right? And it wasn't one person, it wasn't one mural, it was all of us working together to create something that hopefully will set the stage for every year to come after that.
Yeah. And welcoming, honestly, like being the only not South Asian artist or a South Asian person, like I felt very like welcomed and very like, it was very like open and welcoming, and like, yeah, so it was a really nice feeling.
I don't think that this is the last time we'll all be in the same room together. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Yeah. We're gonna be all together, you know, and we'll be looking back at today as being a pivotal moment. I wanna just thank all of you for being so amazing through this entire process, and, you know, taking the time to get to know the people in the community, you know, stopping. I know it's hard to, you know, break out of your creative process, but I felt that everybody did their best to, you know, accommodate the entire community. And I want to thank you for making the Punjabi market so beautiful, right? It's very pretty. It looks completely different than it did just last month. So want to thank you for that. I also think that we should be thanking Monsoon Festival of Arts and the South Asian Art Society for helping us come together to have this conversation today, and really being champions of art over the last 2 years through the pandemic. We might not have been able to come together just a few months ago, but the folks over at Monsoon, they figured out a way, and we're really grateful for that. Do you have anything to close out on?
Yeah, and just like you said, thank you to everyone. And we couldn't have done this without the artists, without the landlords, the sponsors, partners. It was a huge amount of people coming together to make this as beautiful as it was. So everyone played a huge role, and yeah, I'm so grateful to be part of this community of just so much talent and so much such giving people. It's really amazing.
Yay, us.